Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive with us.
Always fun.
Yeah, today we're going to be going into some pretty intense territory.
Yeah, this is
We're talking about Eldridge Cleaver.
Eldridge Cleaver.
Soul on Ice.
Yeah, and the Legacy.
Huge books.
1968.
Yeah, a lot of acclaim.
A lot of controversy.
A lot of controversy.
They were really interested in sort of unpacking the impact of this book.
Yeah.
Cleaver himself is such a fascinating figure.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the reasons people are so drawn to this is that it touches on themes of race and power and personal transformation.
Huge themes.
During a period of American history that was just so pivotal.
Absolutely. You know, it's really fascinating to think about how Soul on Ice came to be right.
Okay.
Because it emerged from a very specific setting.
Right.
Folsom State Prison, where Cleaver was incarcerated.
Right.
And it wasn't just, a collection of random thoughts.
Yeah.
It was a carefully crafted window into his evolution.
From a criminal into a political activist.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and, one thing that I think really grabs people's attention right off the bat is his initial justification of rape as this insurrectionary act against white oppression.
Yeah.
And,
that's a tough one.
A hard pill to swallow, especially for modern readers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was a stance that he would later renounce, but it reflects the just deep-seated anger and resentment that he felt towards a system that had systematically oppressed Black people for centuries.
Right. And he saw it in this very twisted way as a way to reclaim power.
Exactly.
It makes you really pause and consider the psychological and sociological pressure that might lead someone to such a, warped conclusion.
Absolutely.
And that's where understanding the historical context becomes so crucial.
Absolutely.
Right? We can't separate Cleaver's writings from the climate of the 1960s.
Right. The Civil Rights Movement.
The Civil Rights Movement was gaining momentum.
Yeah, but progress was painfully slow.
Right.
For many.
Yes, and this frustration, this sense of urgency, this permeates Soul on Ice.
Absolutely.
And so that's where I think the book's connection to the Black Power movement becomes so important.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just a personal narrative.
Yeah.
It was also this call to action.
It became a cornerstone of the Black Power movement, boldly proclaiming Black pride, self-determination, and a more militant approach to achieving equality.
And Cleaver was not afraid.
No.
To challenge the status quo.
No, not at all.
And his raw, unfiltered style really resonated with those who felt disillusioned with the idea of waiting patiently for change.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember, too, that, Cleaver wasn't writing in an academic vacuum.
Right.
Right? He was directly engaging with the intellectual giants of his time, even if it meant stirring up controversy.
Right, like his criticism of James Baldwin, for example, was particularly scathing.
Yes. And is often viewed as homophobic through a modern lens.
Right, yeah, that critique was really rooted in Cleaver's perception of Baldwin's portrayal of Black masculinity and homosexuality.
Got it.
It was a complex and sensitive issue, even back then.
Totally.
And it highlighted the ongoing debate about what it meant to be a Black man in America.
Right. And it's also interesting how Cleaver grapples with this concept of womanhood throughout Soul on Ice.
Right.
He uses this term bargaining chips.
Yeah.
Suggesting that he saw women, at least initially, as pawns in a larger power struggle between races.
That's right. And it reflects the pervasive patriarchy that existed within both Black and white communities during that era.
Yeah.
Cleaver himself later acknowledged the shortcomings of this perspective.
Okay.
And advocated for a more nuanced and respectful view of women as equals.
It seems like he was constantly wrestling with these complex ideas about race and gender and power.
And his thinking was anything but static.
Yeah.
And it's part of what makes studying him so intriguing.
Absolutely. And, despite the controversy surrounding his personal life and certain viewpoints, Soul on Ice had a profound impact on the intellectual landscape of the late 1960s.
Oh, yeah.
It sparked discussions about racial dynamics, power structures, and the intersectionality of race, gender, and class.
Wow.
This wasn't just a book that sat on shelves.
Right.
It was a book that people debated in classrooms, coffee shops, and living rooms across the country.
Right.
It was everywhere.
Yeah. In fact, it was even named one of the 10 best books of the year.
Wow.
By the New York Times.
That's huge.
which speaks volumes about its cultural reach.
Yeah.
For a book written in prison, that's quite an achievement.
It really is.
You know?
It demonstrates how Cleaver's work transcended the confines of his physical imprisonment and entered the national conversation in a powerful way. And this is where we start to see the emergence of a truly complex legacy, one that continues to spark debate and inspire reflection even today.
Right, and Cleaver's life was full of twists and turns.
Oh, yeah.
And perhaps one of the most unexpected
Yeah.
was his shift from radical left politics
Right.
to conservative republicanism later in life.
It surprised a lot of people.
It really did.
It really did.
Yeah, and that move surprised a lot of people, didn't it?
It certainly did. It was a shift fueled by several factors.
Okay.
Cleaver became disillusioned with communist regimes after spending time abroad.
Okay.
And he also underwent a profound religious conversion.
Oh, wow.
Becoming a born-again Christian.
Okay.
All of these experiences shaped his evolving political views and led him down a path that many found difficult to reconcile with his earlier persona.
Yeah, it's almost like he was on this constant quest for answers.
Yeah.
For a system of belief that could explain the injustices that he saw in the world.
Right.
And that journey took him to some pretty unexpected places.
What's interesting is that even as his political views shifted,
Right.
his core concerns about racial inequality remained.
Yeah.
He just started approaching them from a different angle.
Okay.
Emphasizing personal responsibility and spiritual transformation over revolutionary action.
And speaking of transformation, we haven't even touched on Cleaver's writing style itself.
Right.
It wasn't dry academic prose.
Not at all. It was visceral.
Yeah.
Poetic and often deeply personal.
Yeah.
He used vivid imagery and metaphors to convey the rawness of his experiences and emotions.
Yeah, you can feel the anger and the frustration.
Oh, yeah.
But also the vulnerability in his words.
Absolutely.
Do you have a favorite passage or essay from Soul on Ice
Oh, let me think.
that really exemplifies this style?
There's a section in his essay, Notes on a Native Son,
Okay.
where he compares the experience of being Black in America to being an astronaut,
Okay.
adrift in this hostile and alien environment.
Oh, wow.
And it's such a powerful image. And it captures that sense of isolation and disorientation that many Black people felt at the time.
It's incredible how he could weave together these personal experiences and political analysis, literary artistry in such a compelling way.
Remember, he was writing in a time when the very definition of Blackness was being challenged and redefined.
Yeah.
Soul on Ice didn't shy away from those complexities.
Right.
It embraced them.
And that brings us back to the book's impact on the civil rights movement.
Yes.
I mean, it was published in 1968.
Right in the thick of things.
Right in the thick of things.
Yeah.
The movement was evolving.
Yeah.
And there was this growing tension
Yeah.
between those who advocated for nonviolent resistance
Right.
and those who felt a more militant approach was necessary.
And Cleaver's book definitely added fuel to that fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, his call for Black empowerment, his critique of white supremacy, and his willingness to embrace more confrontational tactics. It really resonated with those who felt the pace of change was far too slow.
But even within the movement itself, Soul on Ice sparked debate.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Not everyone agreed with his views on violence or his stance on gender roles.
Exactly. While many saw him as a powerful voice for change, others criticized his more radical stances.
Right. So the book became a lightning rod.
Yeah, it forced people to grapple with these difficult questions about the direction of the movement and the complexities of Black identity.
It seems like Soul on Ice was both a reflection of and a catalyst for the changing landscape of the civil rights movement.
A great way to put it.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a passive observer. It actively engaged in the dialogue. Pushing the conversation forward in ways that were both exciting and unsettling.
Right. And even though some of Cleaver's ideas might seem dated or even problematic today, it's impossible to deny the impact that Soul on Ice had on the intellectual landscape at the time.
Huge impact.
And it wasn't just activists who were reading this book.
No, it resonated with intellectuals across various fields.
Yeah. I'm curious, what do you think it was about Soul on Ice that made it such a touchstone for this intellectual community?
Well, I think part of it was Cleaver's ability to connect the dots between these seemingly disparate issues. He didn't just talk about race in isolation. He explored how it intersected with gender, with class, with power, and even sexuality.
Wow.
So it was this holistic approach to understanding oppression that resonated with people who were trying to make sense of a world that felt increasingly complex and unjust.
Yeah, he wasn't just offering a critique.
Right.
He was offering a framework for understanding the interconnectedness of social systems.
Precisely. And while his solutions might not have always been universally embraced, his analysis of the problem was incredibly insightful.
Yeah.
He challenged conventional thinking, forced people to question their assumptions, and ultimately helped to reshape the national conversation about race and power.
And I think that's a key point to highlight.
Yeah.
He was a master of provoking thought, even if it meant upsetting people along the way.
Oh, yeah.
His writing had this undeniable power to make you uncomfortable.
It did.
To force you to confront truths that you might have preferred to ignore.
It wasn't comfortable reading, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But that discomfort was part of its brilliance. It shook people out of complacency and forced them to engage with the realities of racism and inequality in a deeper way.
So we have this incredibly influential book that becomes a symbol of resistance, a catalyst for change. But we also have this incredibly complex man, Eldridge Cleaver, whose own life was a testament to the complexities of personal transformation and the ever-evolving nature of political ideology. It's a reminder that human beings are rarely easily categorized.
Absolutely not.
But are they?
We're all products of our experiences, our beliefs, and our ongoing search for meaning. And Cleaver's journey with all of its twists and turns reflects that fundamental truth.
And even though he eventually moved away from the radical politics, you know, it's interesting how Cleaver's religious conversion, which we touched on earlier, plays into all of this. It was such a significant turning point in his life. And one that a lot of people found difficult to reconcile with his earlier radicalism.
It's definitely one of the most fascinating and perhaps perplexing aspects of his journey. In the late 1970s, Cleaver embraces Christianity, becomes a born-again Christian.
And this spiritual transformation led him to reject his previous radical leftist ideology.
Completely.
And adopt a more conservative worldview. You know, that must have been a jarring shift for those who knew him as this fiery advocate for revolution.
Oh, it was a dramatic change, and it alienated many of his former supporters. He began emphasizing spiritual solutions to social problems, advocating for peaceful means of social change, and even went so far as to support Ronald Reagan's presidential campaign.
Wow. So it seems like his focus shifted from systemic change to individual transformation.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. He came to believe that true liberation came from within. Through a connection with God, rather than through political revolution.
So it was a radical departure from his earlier beliefs.
It was, but it was a genuine expression of his evolving worldview.
Yeah, it speaks to the complexities of human nature.
It really does.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
How our beliefs and values can shift and evolve over time.
Absolutely.
As we encounter new experiences and grapple with life's big questions.
Cleaver's life was anything but predictable. And his journey reminds us that even the most seemingly fixed ideologies can be subject to change.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Cleaver's transformation in prison. The impact of Soul on Ice on the Black Power movement. His evolving views on race and gender. His surprising turn to conservative politics and Christianity. What does it all mean?
That's the big question, isn't it?
What's the takeaway for someone like you who's diving deep into his story?
Well, I think Cleaver's life and work ultimately challenge us to think critically about the relationship between personal experience and political ideology. He shows us how our individual journeys can shape our understanding of the world and how those understandings can evolve over time. He also reminds us that the struggle for social justice is complex, multifaceted, and often marked by internal debate and disagreement.
Soul on Ice isn't just a historical artifact.
No.
Is it?
It's a text that continues to spark dialogue and challenge us to examine our own beliefs about race, power, and equality.
And it can make you uncomfortable.
It can.
Even angry at times.
Absolutely.
But it's also a book that can inspire deep reflection and push us to engage in these meaningful conversations about the issues that continue to divide our society.
Well said.
That's a valuable legacy.
It is.
Even if it's a complicated one.
Even if it's complicated,
Cleaver's willingness to challenge the status quo, to speak his truth, and to constantly evolve his thinking leaves us with a lot to ponder.
It certainly does.
And his life and work remind us that the pursuit of justice is an ongoing process.
Yes.
One that requires constant dialogue, self-reflection,
Yeah.
and a willingness to grapple with these difficult questions.
It does.
There are no easy answers.
No.
But Cleaver's story encourages us to keep asking those questions.
Keep searching.
And to keep striving for a more just and equitable world.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been another deep dive. Thanks for joining us.